We're speaking with Robert Ackerman on this show, Robert J. Ackerman, who's the author of the book, I Heal You With My Hands. He joins us on Author's Corner here on America Tonight with me, Kate Delaney. Robert, thank you so much for coming on the show. We look forward to speaking with you about your mission and this important book. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
Let's talk about, first of all, your life. You're a Vietnam veteran, so thank you for your service. Tell us about the road to coming back from Vietnam and of course, what that was like going through that.
Well, I had a lot of stuff happen to me in Vietnam, and I came back and I had PTSD and generalized anxiety disorder and something else I don't remember. And I came back and I went to with my sister to a party with a bunch of hippies, and nobody would talk to me, nobody would look at me because they all thought we were baby killers. And so that was my thank you.
Wow, so I'm so sorry about that experience. And then when you come back, of course, then it's about trying to find your way after everything you had seen and everything that you had been through. And you were the director of the Pennington County Drug and Alcohol Task Force, also a director of the Meade Street Halfway House. And I think in your soul, it's about helping people. Is that right?
That is right. I was always taught to help people. I've been taught for a long time that we're all related, and I researched that, and science tells us we're all related. We're chimpanzees. We got 99.9% of their genes, so that's how far close we're related to animals, and we're related to all animals.
Yeah. So your book, I Heal You With My Hands, tell everybody that's listening what that's about, what they can expect.
Well, first of all, it's just an autobiography, and I don't know, I think it's kind of interesting, but I don't know other people will feel about an autobiography. But then I talk about the war, and then I talk about my experiences with God.
Yeah, and you talk about, when you talk about the war, what's also interesting is you talk about your dad, who was a Marine in World War II. He fought in Guatemala and Iwo Jima, and you say, I'm sure he had PTSD when he came home. And
yeah, it was
right?
Guadalcanal, and I'm sure he had PTSD. They didn't even know what to call it back then. They used to have shell shock and what was the other one? Battle fatigue, but they didn't do anything about it anyway. But luckily, somebody came up with PTSD and started getting us some help.
Yeah. And I mentioned, some of the jobs that you've done. I mean, even volunteer fireman for 7 years. You coached a soccer team. In fact, you coached a soccer team that won the Dakota State soccer tournament. That had to be a really big moment for you.
That was a huge moment because I was given what they call the scrubs. That they're hard to work with, and they were not hard players. And I coached them, and they lost a lot of games. And then the next year I coached them, and they got better, and they won the B tournament in Rapid. And then at one of our meetings, soccer meetings, one of the parents of my worst player stood up and he says, "We're not letting you take your team to the state tournament because they'll embarrass Rapid City." And I said, "I'm taking the team to the tournament and I'm going to win the tournament." And some of them laughed at me. And I worked those guys out, and I had them play Class A teams, 2 in a day for a couple of days to get them in shape, and we won it.
Wow. And you show them, you said, by winning that's absolutely for sure. And,
you work hard. Working hard's the biggest thing in sports.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And as you said, this is a memoir, which, by the way, you can get this on Amazon for a song. I Heal You with My Hands. You can get it wherever good books are sold. And what else do you talk about in your book?
Well, I talk about several times I almost got killed in Vietnam. A helicopter crash where the pilot was killed immediately, and the co-pilot had a broken leg. I talk about when we got shot up flying into Da Nang, and I looked and saw a bunch of holes coming up through the bottom of our C-130, and I ran over the porthole window, and I saw fuel coming out of the wings, and then I went over the other one the same. So I ran up and I yelled as I was going up the stairs, "We've been shot up." And the pilot turned around and he had glass sticking out of his forehead, and it just, a head wound really bleeds, and he couldn't see shit. Oh, excuse me.
That's okay.
and so the co-pilot, his lower right window was broken out. He had gotten shot through the leg, and the pilot said to the co-pilot, "You're going to have to land this because I can't see." And the co-pilot says, "Well, I got to get this wound back." So they asked me to get a medical kit, and I got all the gauze I could, and I said, "This is going to hurt like hell," and I packed up his wound, entrance and exit wounds, and it didn't hit an artery. So the co-pilot says, "You'll have to use the brakes and I'll land it." And the pilot says, "Fine," and we landed all right. But when we landed, they had a bunch of fire trucks out there, and they poured water on it until every last drop of fuel had drained out of the wings.
Wow. I mean, it really was, as you said, you had several experiences where you were almost killed, which is unbelievable listening to you, talk about that. And then coming back from the Vietnam War and feeling as though nobody thanked anybody, and that it was just a kind of a different homecoming, absolutely, for sure. And that made it hard for you and others that came back, right?
Oh, it made it very hard. It was, you felt like slime. It was very hard.
Yeah, I bet. I'm sorry for that, and thank you for your service. The book, again, is I Heal You with My Hands. When people crack open the book, what do you hope that they may learn about, or they may think, or might open their mind to?
Well, what I want them to think about is God, but most of my autobiographical stuff is at the first of the book, from when I was 5 and broke a leg and on until I went to Vietnam. And then I start talking about God because in 1969, God picked me up, threw me clear across the room onto the middle of a bed in this large suite, and he took the breath from my body. And he was taking the breath from my body. I thought, oh, I didn't know God took this way. And then I thought, well, why not? He's God. And then all the left was my breath was gone, and I thought, well, here I go. And instead, he started slowly breathing the breath back into my lungs. And he said, someday you'll heal with your hands. So ever since 1969, I've been trying to figure out what that meant. I think I've got it figured out, and that's why I wrote this book, really.
Is because you think you figured out exactly what the title is, I Heal You with My Hands.
Yeah, I figured out what he meant. He didn't mean physically putting my hands on people. He meant something else.
Yeah, and so when people are reading that, and they're reading about, obviously, your journey, were you a believer before that happened?
I believed in God, but I was raised Roman Catholic, and I was mistreated by him and told lies by him, and so I was kind of a Catholic, but not a Roman Catholic, but I just knew there was a God.
And I
had a couple more experiences with God too,
So by knowing that and having those experiences, that probably enriched your belief, and you know that it's real.
Oh yeah, it made it easier to research and stuff, and I have absolutely no doubt there's a God, because he touched me, he talked to me, and he saved me from dying of thirst in the cave. So yeah, there's a God.
Yeah.
Who takes each one of us seriously, but mostly lets us live our free will. And apparently our free will has gotten us into a lot of trouble in the world with, I talk about these things too, climate change, plastic in our ocean, overpopulation, and what's the other one? Did I say global warming?
Yeah, global warming and climate change and plastics in the ocean, sure.
And overpopulation.
Yeah. And so all of that is in there, the way you've broken down what you've researched and things that you found out and things you've learned about in your life, certainly. And again, I've said it a couple times, but I heal you with my hands. Robert J. Ackerman, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Good luck, everybody.